If you've just started care with us, you've probably heard that word a lot. And you can never hear that word enough, because subluxations are the root of many, many health conditions in our society and in our bodies. Subluxations are the beginning, I would say, the immediate effect that stressors have on our bodies. As a chiropractor, our job is to identify where they are. It's not that we've created the science of how we heal, but there are laws that govern our body. There are laws that govern our universe and nature. And those laws need to be abided by. When we don't abide by those laws, our bodies become sick and ill and diseased. So how do we start to obey the laws? We'll get into that a little bit. But we've set up a whole year of training, education, and workshops to try to teach you about the laws of the body and the laws of the mind. And they all matter. But today we want to cone it down, and we want to make sure that we can simplify. Why the heck do you come in, lay down on the table, have my hands try to identify restrictions and misalignments, and what does that have to do with our overall health? We're going to try to sum that up tonight in a very succinct and simple way. Let's start, number one, by a show of hands or type in, who got the newsletter today? Who got our newsletter? I'd like to know. If you got our newsletter, extra tickets. Newsletter from anyone. Stephanie, you're just going to say you did and maybe didn't. It would be in your email. Hopefully.
Yes.
Yes. Who's just said yes? I just missed that.
Becky.
Becky. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So there was something on that newsletter we talked about. So hopefully we're going to, if you remember any of that newsletter, I'm going to ask you questions. All right. Yeah. All right. Type in if you got it. So on that newsletter, we're talking a little bit about subluxations, and there's a whole document that you can read even further. And we're gonna go over the 3 T's. But let me back up for a moment. Take a breath and slow down. Yes, bench press for the mind. There you go. Very good. Very good. Subluxations can simply be defined as misalignments. When our spine is misaligned, the vertebrae become in alignment or misalignment with each other. That affects the nerves. The nerves themselves are very, very sensitive. It only takes the weight of a dime to shut off up to 60% of the life force or nerve flow from your brain down to other parts of your body. There is more than your tight muscles and your aching joints that these nerves go to that usually cause people to come in. Subluxations affect the overall quality of our life when they're irritating these nerves. So subluxations, misalignments of the spine affecting nervous system inflow, cause interference. Just remember that word, interference. Thank you, Lisa. Interference in our body's natural ability to heal causes us to be diseased. Disease or dis-ease comes from a lack of balance and ease in our bodies. The power that made our bodies is what heals our bodies. That's a law. If you had surgery, the surgeon might have done an amazing job at fixing or removing a problem, but ultimately your body still has to heal from that surgery. A cut will not heal on its own unless there is life force. Science cannot create life from all the components. If you took all the components that make up our cells and we put them in a petri dish, it would not create itself. There's an energy or a force, we call it a vital force or universal intelligence, that causes our bodies to heal. Call it God, call it who you want, but there is a creator of our bodies that helps our body heal. And the power that created it needs to flow through our bodies. When we have subluxations or misalignments, that power, that energy does not flow. So this is why subluxations can be so detrimental to our health and our bodies, because it affects the overall quality of our body's health. But it's very important, I'd say, very important that you know how the heck they even came up. How did you get your subluxations? How did they form? Because if I don't teach you how the subluxations were formed, then I do very little as a doctor to educate you on how not to end up in the same situations that have caused you to come into our office. So let's talk and understand a little bit about how our bodies become misaligned or subluxated. And hopefully that can bring us full circle into what makes us sick and how does that bring us out of sickness, and what do we do to stay healthy, happy, and peaceful and well? What are those tips? We go through a lot of them throughout the year, so we're not going to cover it all, but we're going to try to give you the highlights. So there's something we call the 3 T's. So if you got the email, you probably are a little ahead of the game in this process, but there are 3 stressors that cause subluxation in our bodies. And before I ask you guys to type those in or say them, you can just unmute your mic. I want you to kind of understand how our bodies are always adapting. Our bodies are always under stress. Just breathing is stressful to some degree. It causes oxidation in our bodies. If I ran a marathon, I cause more oxidation in our body. Our body has to deal with stressors chemically. It has to deal with stressors emotionally. It has to deal with stressors physically. These stressors can overwhelm our body. And that's when we lose the ability to adapt to the stress. When a stress overwhelms our body, that's exactly when we get that misalignment. That's when our bodies trip the breaker. I don't know who I was just talking to today. It might actually have been Houston. But I was saying how our body's spinal cord is kind of like a fuse box in your house. And if there's a short circuit, if the fridge going into the breaker box overloads that circuit, the circuit breaks. That's exactly what happens in a subluxation. We break the circuit. There was an overwhelm, an inability for our body to adapt, your electrical system to adapt, and in order to adapt, the body had to misalign. That's a natural reaction, but that misalignment, uncorrected, can start to lead ultimately to death. You're like, oh wait, doc, you're taking this a little far. Are you saying that these are silent killers, that I don't know they're in my spine and one day they're going to kill me? Well, there was a study that was done back in the earlier 1900s, and they found what they did was they dissected people had died of certain conditions. So they looked at kidney failure, looked at heart disease, maybe stomach cancers or ulcers. And what they would do is they trace the nerves from the organ back to the spine. And they would trace those nerves back. And when they found the nerve where it entered into the spinal column, every single instance, I think there was at least 20 or 30 different cadavers that were studied, every instance had increased arthritis in that area. So hopefully, if you've been through my initial new patient report, you understand that subluxations cause stress and strain on our body through our muscles, our ligaments, our tendons, our nerves. And more importantly than anything, it's that nerves. But if it's there long enough, our discs, the shock absorbers decay and arthritis forms. So decades and decades of disease and decay in our spine, not being checked, not being adjusted, and not proper moving causes arthritis. And that arthritis ultimately can be linked to diseases that affect the organs that sometimes shut us down. So full circle, part of a healthy, well program is getting your spine checked for subluxation and removing that misalignment. Because when we can remove the interference, the power that made you can help to heal you. Is it a magic wand? Maybe. But in all cases, not every single patient is well, healthy, and is rid of all disease that gets adjusted. So this is why it's so important we're here to talk about how do we get sick and what causes these subluxations. So let's get into the 3 T's. There are 3 components that cause our bodies to misalign. Some of them could be obvious, hopefully. Others may not be so obvious, but that is the whole reason we're here. So who read the article, or who would have any sense of what is something, a word, that begins with a T that would be a stress to our body? Oh,
Trauma.
boy, Stephanie went right for it. All right, go. What did you say? Did I hear someone say something?
Trauma, Becky.
Trauma. Thank you,
Yeah.
Becky. Yes. Trauma, right?
Right.
We'll start with that.
Toxins
Mm-hmm.
and thoughts.
Man, this is the most advanced class I've ever had. By the way, you guys are the smartest. It's because you actually did your homework and read. This is amazing. Usually it's crickets, by the way. No one knows any of these answers. So the three T's are traumas, toxins, and thoughts. So what's that even mean? Well, it's a catchy thing. We just like to say the three T's. But like I said, we can have chemical stresses that overwhelm our bodies. That's toxins. Toxins. Did you know that we're exposed to over 32,000 chemicals a week? A week.
Wow.
Our bodies were miraculously built, intelligently ready to handle toxins. Maybe not 32,000 a week, but we can handle them. But when we have an overwhelm, when we can't adapt to those chemicals anymore, we are subluxated. Chronic subluxations in different areas of the spine let me know that toxins are adding to the situation. Usually it's in the mid-back, sometimes very top of the head there. But toxins, where do we find them? Where do we find toxins in our environment? You guys can type in or go ahead. Mm-hmm. You betcha. Food.
Yeah.
I'd
Air.
say, yeah. Go ahead. What's the other thing?
Air.
Air. Yeah.
The air.
So water we drink, food that we eat, and the air we breathe. These are vital things. If we don't have any of those three things, we're dead. You know, the most important things we can do is try to make effects on things that we have control over. We may not be able to control the air that's outside, but if we're stuck inside all day, get outside. The air is much better out there than it is in here. This is stagnant dead air. It's recirculated air. It helps for energy savings, but it's killing us. Nature has so many solutions. One of the simplest solutions is just get out and breathe fresh air. Right now, it's beautiful. I would still say the same thing in the winter, but fresh air, very important. The foods we buy, we can make choices that are better. Sometimes there's economical reasons we can or can't, but there's a lot of resources out there. And we'll dig into stuff as we move through our workshops if you come to them. But our water, at least use a filter. I would tell you, at least use a filter, okay? Reverse osmosis would be great. If you are using reverse osmosis, realize that sometimes your water can almost be too pure, for lack of a better way to say that. And if you don't have enough minerals in your water, your body may lose some minerals when you drink a lot of purified water. So I'm a big proponent of trace mineral drops. I probably have some things I could sell here, but most of them you can buy. We can let us know, but we can give you links to these little liquid drops you can just put in your water throughout the day. Most people are mineral deficient. Trace minerals help the whole process run. Magnesium is a huge part of that, and most people are deficient. So toxins, number one. Trauma. That can be obvious, right? I fell out of a tree. What did you say? We get hit by a car accidents. You might have sports injuries. There's a lot of traumas that help physically. You can imagine our body getting knocked out of place. And that's what most people assume when they come into our office. It's those physical traumas that cause their misalignments. And that's probably very true. Everything that's ever happened to your spine leaves an imprint on it. That imprint, the longer that's been there, the more decayed you usually are if you haven't done anything to correct it. And that's what we assess on your x-rays. But there's something I want you to be aware of, because you can't necessarily say, I'm going to remove the bullseye from my back of getting hit by a car. I'm going to not fall today. Some of these things you don't have control over. Maybe falling you do. That's come to my balance class. Shameless plug for a couple months from now. But we can control micro trauma. Micro trauma means that we have little bits of trauma and stress to our bodies physically every day, repetitively. That may be someone who does the same thing every day. I say most of us probably do the same thing every day. Almost all of us do. How are we living life to reduce the stressors that we're putting on ourselves every day? Some of us, it may be as easy as just getting up more often from our seated position. If you don't use it, you lose it. Our posture is going to weaken the longer that we sit and don't move. So move. I mean, what's the end result here, as I'm saying, is move. Get moving. I move your joints individually to help you get healthy. But if you don't strengthen and move them and support them, after we're done with the adjustment, you'll be back for another. And my goal is to hopefully help you become less dependent upon me or any other doctor, and to become as healthy and save as much money as you can on healthcare in the long term. But you've got to make changes to your habits. And most of us have horrible posture in the way that we hold ourselves throughout the day. And most of us don't realize the importance of how important it is to make and do daily stretches and routine to help undo the effects of gravity. So micro trauma comes from poor posture. Our slouch sitting posture is repetitively beating and destroying muscles and joints in our body. We got to move them and get them in better position. Our body was built for better position. The second thing that we need to do is start to strengthen those too. So micro trauma, repetitive work needs to be undone. We have to take more often breaks. We need to stretch and undo body. The one thing I would tell everyone we can do is posture. It's called a posture break. A posture break. Posture breaks is simple, even if you're just seated. If you were stuck at a computer looking down at your phone all day, or even for an hour, you need to get that timer set so it says, oh man, it's time to get up and stretch back. This is what we want right here. This is a posture break. We're opening up our body. We're extending our neck. We're opening our chest. When we can undo the stressors that we put on ourselves physically, we can sometimes help the stressors mentally. Oh, sorry, I lost you all. Are you guys all still there? I saw, Stephanie, that you texted something. And yes, very much so. If just sitting or doing certain things for too long, your body's trying to tell you, hey, pay attention. I'm not in the best position. I'm not ready for this. I'm not as strong. We've got to listen to our bodies. Very good. Just listen to it and start building on it. If we do the same thing over and over and expect something different to happen, well, that's what we call insanity, right? So we do the same thing over and over and expect something different to happen. Well, that means that we need to start to make changes. We need to get, a repetition. And like our email said, we got to get repetitive. We've got to set a plan. We've got to be educated. But if we're going to make changes, I want you to focus on one small little thing, hopefully after this call, that has to do with one of these big categories. And there's probably one little aspect of that category that you can change. Maybe you're going to start buying a little more organic vegetables. Maybe there's something you have every day. Let's put it this way. Let's say I'm a coffee drinker. Love coffee. And I don't buy organic. Maybe that's the one thing you do. You buy organic coffee at least, because you do have it every day. If you have rutabaga once a year, I could care less if it was probably organic. You have it once a year. What you're doing every day is what you got to focus on. We should be moving every day. So that's my other challenge to you guys. So the last and trickiest aspect of the 3 T's is our thoughts. We need to start working mental push-ups. Our bodies, let's say, put it this way, our thoughts are things. What we think about and what we think about, we bring about. What we complain about, we also bring about. So when we think, it happens. It may not be today, it may not be this moment, but the vibratory energy of our thoughts is transmitted throughout our entire body and out past us, even in our physical form. And this may be too much. You might be like, I don't know what this guy's talking about, but understand that how our brains are wired can definitely affect how our body heals. The body is not segmented out. We can't just say, I chopped off my head and so my body is fine because now I'm not stressed anymore. We hold stress, tension, and emotions inside of our body, not just in our head. Every single organ, cell, and tissue of our body has receptors for the emotional chemicals that are released. That was Candace Pert wrote a book called The Molecules of Emotion. There's books called The Body Keeps the Score. There is so much more research that our minds and bodies are one, and that balance between them is so important. Our society is really good at trying to take our mind away from ourselves and put it on something that we want, need to buy, or have. And the more that stress and tension overwhelm us with what we don't have, the more that our body starts to lack in its ability. EMDR is great, by the way, really great stuff. It's a mind and body connection. But the more that we take our bodies away from ourselves and we disassociate, the more detrimental things can be. So as simple as thinking of this way, it's just like you've got this fuse box in your spine, and when someone's tripped the fuse, when someone's tripped my breaker, and I'm upset, it's going to affect my body. If there's things that are not dealt with, if there's emotions that are brewing that I'm not sharing, if I'm not being assertive enough, if I'm not being loving enough, if I'm not caring the way that I should, or people are around me or treating me or doing things that I'm not willing to accept or talk about, then those emotions get held inside and they affect us. And no, there is a direct connection between back pain and depression. Huge, huge connection. It's easy to say I'm going to stretch my neck every day. Even harder to say I'm going to stretch my mind. But it's worth it. It's all worth it. Some simple activities that we suggest in trying to change some of our mental aspect is maybe just being aware of it at first. So journaling is a wonderful thing. Sometimes you can get it out of here and put it on the paper and get rid of it. Sometimes it's just retraining our brain to think in a more grateful way. Gratitude has been shown. People who hold gratitude have liver diseases of cancer, longer life expectancy. Gratitude writing, write down 3 things you're thankful for every morning, or 5. Before you think of anything else, before you go for your phone, before you think of all the stress that's about to happen, you can think about them, but even better if you write them. Last thing is breath work. In my opinion, breath work is the ultimate mindfulness, because breath work means that you are focused on your breath with your mind. So you're connecting your mind and your body. The breath holds so much. Just think about it. To be in spirit, you're inspired. When I inspire, I'm in spirit. We are beings with spirits, and we need to act as if we are connected. The more disconnected we are, the more life is in a struggle. So what we want to do for you is just have your right now realize that misalignments, subluxations cause a disconnection. Your body is not connecting clearly. There's lots of reasons it doesn't connect clearly. It might be our thoughts, it might be our toxins in our bodies, it might be our traumas. But we need to start to make changes to those. So my challenge to you all is to say, what are you going to change? What little aspect of a healthier habit can you start this summer or this next month? We actually have a little chart up in the office right now. You get tickets for just answering and saying, hey, what healthy habit are you going to work on? Maybe it's drinking more water. Maybe it's drinking or doing breath work. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's exercising. Why not today? Right. Start today. Huh? So if you guys I'd love you to say, hey, give me a feedback. Let me know what your takeaway was from today, and maybe one aspect of your health that you'd like to make a change to. Because just putting it out there in the universe and having us look at it helps you achieve that more. So text it in or tell me, either way. Daily stretching, very good, Judy. Great idea. I love it. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of moving and exercising and getting up out of that chair. It's wonderful. More water. Yes, Lisa. That'd be good for you, Lisa. Lubricate those joints and those discs. Hey, this is one of the best classes I like to share. Yes, get up when my body says to and sit when it says to. Very good, Stephanie. This is really close to my philosophy of what I do and why I do it. Ultimately, just helping you to understand why I'm doing what it is, I think, helps you heal. But more importantly, I want you to just be educated, to understand what things can you do to help your health. So my hope and prayer is that you share this information with others. And maybe they get checked by a chiropractor, or maybe they don't, but they know that there's options more than just drugs and surgery that can possibly bring them into better health and happiness.